You remember when people used to just fade out of your life? Not because of some dramatic fallout, not forever, just because they moved away, switched schools, changed jobs, and unless you'd written their home phone number down in some notebook, that was it. They existed only as a private memory you carried around by yourself. If you were born between 1976 and 1985, researchers say you're part of a tiny in-between cohort. You're not really Gen X, and you don't quite fit with Millennials either. You're what's often called a Xennial, and you carry a very particular kind of tiredness that's hard to explain to anyone else. It isn't that your body is worn out, it's a kind of time-based fatigue. You feel older than your years because, in 4 decades, you've effectively lived through 2 separate lifetimes. You're a living bridge between 2 completely different phases of human awareness. And the constant rubbing together of those eras is wearing on you in ways you might not have the language for yet. Here's what sets you apart. You still get a tiny automatic rush when a physical phone rings, but you almost never pick it up. You can unfold and follow a paper map without thinking, yet you freeze up if your GPS drops for even 10 seconds. You show up 5 minutes before every appointment because you grew up in a culture where on time meant already late, and there was no such thing as texting a landline to say, running behind. You might still keep a real notebook or a pen on you, not because you're anti-tech, but because your mind still trusts the solid feel of ink on paper more than the weightless, here today, gone tomorrow feeling of a cloud app. You take care to file your digital documents into well-labeled folders because you remember when searching for something meant literally digging through a drawer. You still purchase physical copies of the books that matter to you, partly because some quiet part of you isn't fully convinced the internet is truly permanent. You mentally practice what you'll say to the cashier or the clerk, not necessarily out of social anxiety, but because you're still wired for efficient, one-take human interactions from a time when every conversation wasn't rehearsed, replayed, and edited. You catch sight of a sunset and feel a flash of, I should take a photo, followed almost instantly by a wave of exhaustion at the idea of posting and sharing it. You are living at what some psychologists call the analog-digital threshold. And this goes deeper than missing the good old days. You're trying to run 2 incompatible operating systems inside one brain. What you're experiencing is a kind of dual environment cognitive load. Studies on how the brain develops suggest that the environment we live in from roughly age 12 to 22 essentially locks in how we expect the world to work. For you, that key decade was split in half. Your early social life was shaped in a pre-digital world. Then, right as you entered adulthood, the digital world arrived and completely saturated your reality. That collision produced something specific, a strong internal sense that your actions matter, layered over a deep comfort with uncertainty. Here's what that looked like. In your pre-internet years, if you wanted an answer, you went to the library. If you wanted to see someone, you physically showed up where you promised you'd be. You were the main driver of your own search for information and connection. Outcomes depended on your effort, your memory, your ability to follow through. Then everything shifted. Suddenly, information was instant, but not always trustworthy. Social contact was constant, but often shallow. Your brain had to build a new system on top of the old one, and that overlap never fully harmonized. It left you with a permanent mental tension. You crave the predictability of the analog world, but you're forced to navigate and compete in the chaos of the digital one. Attachment patterns factor into this too. Many Xennials developed what could be seen as a secure yet avoidant mix. You're confident you can survive offline. You know how to repair things, how to be alone with your thoughts, how to wait without entertainment. But you recoil from the always watching, always recording nature of modern online life. You feel prematurely old because you remember what it was like to move through the world unseen. But the story doesn't end with technology changed. The reason it feels like you've aged 100 years since about 2005 is that the basic idea of usefulness has transformed. Back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, technology was a tool. You went to the computer, did what you needed to do, and then stepped away. Today, the roles have flipped. You're not just using the technology, it is using you. You are the raw material, the data, the content, the engagement number that fuels the algorithm. As a Xennial, you notice this shift sharply because you remember the time before, when the computer was a place you visited, not something that followed you everywhere. Younger generations don't feel the same weight because, for them, there has never been a world truly free of noise. They have no lived memory of silence to compare this to. Older generations sometimes dismiss the digital realm as optional, as something they can just opt out of. But you don't have that luxury.